South Korea's environmental companies are making inroads into overseas markets. We examine their activities in China and find out about the businesses the Ministry of Environment is supporting. An era of welfare budget exceeding 100 trillion won. We will take a look at the country's budget for next year and talk about effective ways to manage spending. Will an era of unmanned vehicles come soon? We introduce the autonomous vehicle technology that is near us in real life. A smart evolution for a food waste disposer. We introduce a sanitary and economical food waste disposer. North Korea's English education is in a fever. We take a look at how serious it is and why it is happening.
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon and welcome to Bizline. Now, the Park administration has just announced its first ever budget. How is the government planning to spend the money of you, the taxpayer, in the coming year? We'll find out. We'll also be investigating some environmental technologies and taking a ride in a driverless car. But before we go to those and other features, let's first take a look at all the breaking business and economic news hitting headlines across South Korea this week.
The ruling Saenuri Party and the Labor Ministry agreed to push for a revision bill that would limit the maximum number of work hours per week to 52. The proposal would require employees clock in for no more than 40 hours per week, plus an additional 12 hours of overtime, which includes work done on weekends. More than 100 small and mid-sized firms in Korea could face debt restructuring this year. The Financial Supervisory Service and creditor banks are reportedly drawing up a list of corporate debtors from more than 1,000 small and medium enterprises that owe banks roughly $46.7 million. The rapid rise in Korea's national debt is increasingly pressuring the government to either increase taxes or make serious spending cuts. The Finance Ministry says the government's debt is projected to grow to $480 billion next year, from $413 billion last year. Korea has cemented its status as the world's most wired nation, ranking number 1 on the United Nations Net Connectivity Table for the 4th year in a row. The Global Index of Information and Communications Technology Development is based on 11 indicators measuring internet access and use and skills of around 150 countries.
Have a good laugh. Reviving damaged environments and pollution-proofing businesses make up what is one of the world's most promising future industrial sectors. I'm talking about the environmental industry. It's an industry in which Korean companies are significant players. In fact, they're so significant, Bizline is running a 2-part special about them. You can see the second part next week. But to return to this week's show, we're about to cross the West Sea and head to one of the world's most environmentally challenged markets to see how South Korean companies are making a difference in China.
Tens of thousands of people use the Wangfujing subway station, located at the center of downtown Beijing, China. Here, under the ground, lies a technology developed by a South Korean company that is essential to keep underground air purified to the highest standard. The project, which took a total of 17 months, costing $400,000, was completed last December to filter out microdusts. It was the first case in mainland China to apply Korea's know-how.
시스템 원리는 이제 고압의 전기를 갖다가 저압의 전류로 흘려가지고 PM 2.5의 아주 저농도의 그 먼지를 갖다가 집진하는 아주 고효율의 전기 집진입니다. 지금의 이제 먼지질, 공기질보다 약 80에서 90% 이상 먼지를 제거하게 되니까 아주 쾌척한 그런 그 상태가 될 것으로 예상을 하고 있습니다.
Subway passengers using the Wangfujing Station are benefiting from a high-tech electrostatic precipitator and say they can feel the difference.
然后这边感觉今年开始之后，王府井这边感觉空气比以前好一点，因为以前总是感觉空气比较浑浊，可能偶尔人特别多的时候还会有一点腻味儿。但是今年感觉王府井的地铁站里边整个空气要好了很多。
听说呢，在王府井那个地铁站，最近引进了一套国外的那个静电除尘设备，据说那个除尘的效果还是相当的令人满意。
But RITCO wasn't able to achieve overnight success in bringing environmental projects to China. It took many years to penetrate the market and get its technology recognized by the country that boasts 13 billion people in population.
환경산업은 21세기에 가장 촉망받는 사업으로 주목을 받고 있고 미래 시장을 이끌어갈 성장 동력으로 평가를 받고 있습니다. 세계 환경시장 규모는 2017년이 되면 반도체 시장이 약 300까지 성장할 것으로 예상을 하고 있습니다. 이렇게 커가는 그 환경시장에 저희 환경기업이 진출해서 저희 수출 규모를 늘려가는 게 중요하다고 판단을 했습니다. 그래서 환경부는 그 해외 시장 개척 초기 단계부터 인프라 구축, 그리고 환경산업에 필요한 기술의 현지화, 그리고 프로젝트 수시 협상까지 전주기에 대해서 지원을 해서 수출 규모를 늘려나가려고 노력 중에 있습니다.
To better assist Korean firms such as RITCO in getting their chance to do business in China, the Ministry of Environment and its Korea Environmental Industry Technology Institute officially opened the support center in China in February 2012 and assisted Korean companies to get a total of nearly $50 million worth of projects in China alone last year.
지금이 제가 말씀드린 초기 진출 단계이기 때문에 제가 만약에 환경기업분들 입장에서는 중국 환경시장을 진출을 할 때 우선 첫 번째로 언어가 안 되고요. 두 번째는 문화를 잘 모르기 때문에 참 많이 막막하십니다. 그렇기 때문에 환경 분야에 특화된 저희 센터가 이제 지원을 하면서 환경업체분들이 초기 진출 단계부터 궁금하신 점이나 그리고 중국의 바이어를 만났을 때 주의하실 점들 아니면 직접 바이어를 데리고 오신 분들도 많아요.
Companies that are in business in China are not limited to air treatment. There are various opportunities and technologies that can be introduced to the global community. And Korean companies are in China, as well as many other countries around the world, to realize their dreams of making the environment greener. Also in Beijing, Haesung Engineering is seeking a business opportunity at the Beijing Shaolin Wushu School.
소림무술학교에 설치되는 이 기술은 아이들이 운동을 하고 나서 세면대에서 씻거나 아니면 샤워를 한 물을 바로 하수도로 보내지 않고 이거를 재이용하는 기술인데요. 마이크로 버블과 오존수를 이용해서 여러 가지 공정을 걸치지 않고 간단하게 물을 처리할 수 있는 대장균, 색도, 탁도, SS까지 다 제거할 수 있는 그런 기술입니다.
Recycling water is a very useful technology for countries experiencing water shortage, and with the help provided by the Ministry of Environment, the company hopes to expand its business to other regions in China as well as other countries.
我们是北京少林武术学校，我们的学生呢有1000多人，然后每天用水是100多吨，然后对于学生们来说，就是学生用到这个设备里边的水洗脸都很干净，是吧？然后这个对于学生这个好处是什么？学生感觉也都这个用这个水之后反响很好。
As such, companies in the environment sector wouldn't have been able to achieve such success in the global community without the support from the Korean government, the Ministry of Environment. Fortunately, their supporting roles are not limited to China, but also expanded into other global areas by a vast network to continue to assist Korean firms. As a result, Korean companies in the environment sector have exported their environmental projects to many countries in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. As of 2012, 237 environmental projects from Korea have been implemented, in motion or under research in 50 different countries through diverse cooperative works.
해외 수출액이 늘어나는 걸 살펴보면 2004년도에 약 7천억 원 정도의 규모의 수출을 했었는데 2011년이 돼서는 4조 9천억, 약 700가량 수출액이 늘어났습니다. 그래서 저희가 정부 지원액을 2008년부터 12년도까지 약 424억 원 정도를 투자를 했는데 그로 인해서 수출 효과를 계산해 보니까 약 1조 6,500억 원 정도의 수출 효과가 나타난 것으로 보입니다. 저희가 정부 지원이 어느 정도 성과를 거두고 있다 이렇게 평가를 하고 있습니다.
It is our obligation to preserve the environment and keep it clean. Fortunately, there are many brilliant minds willing to invest their time and energy to develop technology and pursue environmental projects. And with the support provided by the government and market research, there will be opportunities opening wide. Next week, Bizline will take a further look into the future prospects of Korea's environmental projects by visiting more sites that are making our place better and greener to live.
The South Korean government has submitted its budget proposal for 2014 to Parliament for its approval. This budget, of course, dictates which sectors get and which sectors don't get monies in 2014. So, who are the winners? Who are the losers? Moreover, what is South Korea's overall fiscal position? Do further tax revenues actually need to be raised? These are some of the questions we'll be asking our guests today. Here's the President of the Korean Association of Public Finance, Shandong Province. Welcome to Bizline.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. You've looked at the budget. At first look, what stands out? How would you characterize this year's budget?
Yeah, first of all, the total budget of next year is around 335 billion US dollars. Okay. Basically, that is based on the assumption that we have in economic growth rate 3.9%, which is pretty optimistic. You know, several economic professionals criticize it's too optimistic. Anyway, in the government had projections for in economic growth rate next year. That growth rate, what I'm saying is in total budget amounts, has the increase rate around 4.6%.
Across the board?
Yes, yeah. I mean, compared with this year. This year. So basically one of most important characteristics in budget proposal is they emphasize, they more expenditure on the welfare program. So that it occupies around 30% of total expenditure budget. So that is pretty high. And usually, the incoming government, they have a balanced budget in the first year when they have the power. But this government have sort of different pattern, which is they have a deficit balance. Okay, the level of deficit balance is around 1.8 respect to GDP. So there is another big difference from the other governments. The reason they have deficit balance is that they have a lot of welfare program which is pledged by the government during political competition.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd characterize this as a welfare-loaded budget and a deficit budget for the first time?
Yes.
Okay. But let's talk about the other sectors. Beyond welfare, which obviously, as you say, has got a very big expansion, who are the other sort of winners and losers in this budget?
Yes, definitely the winners are welfare in the program. The losers, the first one is SOC, social aware capital. Usually during the stage economic development, government put a lot of money on the SOC investment, but this year, the government emphasize more in a welfare system. That means should decrease the other one. So the first one is SOC.
That's not going to please construction sector.
Right. The second one is sort of industry related expenditure. That is very important for economic growth. But in the government think we are already growing well enough by government. So they're more focus on the welfare. that is a different,
more so than industry. Okay. Now, let's talk about welfare then. There's a strong perception within South Korea. There's an increasing economic polarization. Although some of the figures I've actually seen suggest that Korea's actually got a pretty solid median level of income, and the wealth distribution gap isn't really that wide, even compared to regional economies such as Singapore. Have I been reading the wrong statistics, or do you agree with the that general overview? How serious is the wealth gap?
Yeah, that is one the most difficult problem that the policy designer has in this country. Actually, Korea's income and the wealth distribution is pretty sound. So we have a lot of international studies to compare those aspects around the world.
Yeah.
Every the scholars agree that the United States might be the worst country in income and wealth disparity, and European country might be pretty is the best countries in disparity. But Korea is between two extreme countries. Yeah. That is science and statistics. But in this country, Korean people think. We have a very serious problem in income and wealth disparity. We think we are the worst. It is not. But it's we had last year we had a political competition. Politicians wanted to people's support, political support. People think in a different way. That means politicians have some political pledge that as we have a serious problem in income and wealth distribution, even though it is not true, the politician suggests that we spend more money on welfare. There is same situation even to a minority party. Yeah. So both parties, two candidates from both in the political party have the same political pledges to expand welfare system.
But you pointed out there's not a great deal of stimulus for industry in this budget. How problematic is that going to be for industry in the coming year, if at all?
Actually, at first we needed some sort of philosophical or philosophical argument. What is the role of the government? Right. In the Shandong, usually in Keynesian perspective, they think that the government expenditure is very important for economic growth. But in these days, in the long run, as government expenditure not much important. If the government expenditure increased, in the private sector will be shrink down. There is a negative impact. So in these days, we say that government expenditure is good, but that effect on the economic growth is minor, not big.
And are you happy with the industrial outlook for next year? As you said, this budget is predicated on a significant economic growth next year.
Yeah, actually, during the 70s, 80s, the government the budget on industry, associate investment were very important. But now in the Korean economy, matured enough. So the more important to get economic growth is to have deregulation on the private sector. We have much regulations on service industries, but that policy, and what I'm saying, deregulation policy is more important rather than more in a budget on industry related. Yeah.
Okay, understood. But coming back to the other issue, obviously deregulation is a domestic issue, but Korean companies are exporters, they need to sell in the global market. Looking at sort of global economic indicators for 2014, are you convinced that South Korea will meet its economic growth targets?
Yeah, I think private sectors in Korea become now matured. As far as in the government to not hinder their economic activities, but in Korea. Many people, including government and politicians, think international companies like big companies, Samsung, Hyundai, they are too much strong enough to control market. So there are some they have something saying that we increased tax rate on corporation. So that is wholly reverse way from the international trend. but it's not realized. But in these days, they are saying, especially in the parliament.
Yeah.
But I hope they will not increase the tax rate on corporations.
Corporates. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that brings us to the next question. I mean, President Park is consistently urging the tax authorities to bring in more revenues, to crack down on tax dodgers, and so on and so forth. We're seeing this again and again and again. This indicates that Korea faces a significant tax or even revenue shortfall. How serious is this?
Actually, nobody knows about sort of black economies.
Yeah.
But there was several researches. What I'm saying is international comparisons of the size of black economies. One estimate shows that the size of black economy in Korea is around 20 to 25% with respect to GDP.
Yeah.
Politicians think this big. So they think this is a very serious problem, but it's the estimate is by academic researchers, and not real data, not the real tax not from the tax investigation. So nobody knows the exact size. Actually, Korean tax administration has been developed over the 20 years. And here in our transaction is by mostly by a credit card, not by cash.
Yeah.
So I think there is not much chance to have tax evasion. But in Korea, there are sort of many people think that there are serious tax evasion for certain groups. For example, self-employed, including doctors and lawyers. So personally, I think there might have some portion to get the more tax revenue out of those groups, but that might not be big, very small.
If, as you say, the chances of raising extra tax revenues from the so-called black economy are fairly small, can we expect South Koreans to have to swallow either higher income or corporate taxes, and are those kind of tax increases politically feasible?
Actually, taxes is pretty harmful to economic growth. But that means we should get less tax as possible. But if we need more tax revenue, we should choose which one, which in the tax subject, right? In public finance, there is one answer, which one is best tax revenue. That means we should have a least economic cost, right? So the least economic cost is from consumption tax. The next one is income tax. The third one, which is the last one, is corporation tax. Okay, so that's in a priority in order. So if we need more revenue to support welfare program, the first one might be to increase the value-added tax in Korea. Currently, we have 10% of value-added tax, which is pretty lower than the other countries in the world. For example, the average tax rate in OECD countries for VAT is around 17%. But in Sweden, they have 25%. So Korea, we have just 10%.
There's room to raise,
So it might be the lowest country in OECD country. So if we need, I think to increase the value-added tax rate, that might be one good alternative, which means give the least economic cost.
Gotcha.
The worst one is increase corporate tax. That's terrible, And in the world, no country increase the corporate tax rate, including Greece, even in Japan. In Japan, they have a serious problem in national debt. They need much tax money, but they want to increase the consumption tax rate, but not corporation tax rate.
Okay. Last question for you, yes or no answer, President. Should South Korea be as concerned about welfare now as it is?
Already President Park, during his political competition, announced that she will expand the more welfare program. especially in daycare policy. They already the policy of free daycare and the free lunch in school and the half in college tuition. Yeah, those need a lot of money. Our national debt might be increased from 35% now to 130% in 2050. Right?
So that's the big issue we've got to consider right now.
It's not sustainable, But politicians, they have a term of 5 years. 5 years, they might be safe. But our future, after 40 years, our country might be have some disaster. I mean, financial disaster. So, politicians should have more careful attentions on to have a sustainable pension system.
Gotcha. Well, that's some pretty sobering long-term comments. Thank you very much for that insight. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Generally, I enjoy driving. When I'm too tired, too busy, or if the roads are simply too jammed, I often wish I had someone who could do it for me. Unfortunately, I can't afford a chauffeur. Fortunately, a vehicle is now becoming available that has an onboard computer system which drives itself. Yeah, I'm talking about what you think I'm talking about. The era of the driverless vehicle has dawned. The question is it truly viable? Let's take a look.
With the era of electric cars just around the corner, what will cars of a more distant future be like? Self-driving cars, which had only existed in our imagination, are already running on the roads around the world. A vehicle is repeatedly going around the track at Korea Automobile Testing and Research Institute. At a glance, this vehicle appears normal, but it is running on the road without a driver, as if it is haunted. It stops in front of a crosswalk in accordance with traffic lights and also avoids an obstacle. This vehicle is a self-driving car that Seoul National University's College of Engineering is currently developing. They are exerting themselves in completing the final stage of testing ahead of the upcoming autonomous driving competition. Aside from the 2 sensors and a GPS antenna installed in the front part of the car, it isn't much different from regular cars. But its internal structure is largely different. Inside the car, a PC is installed to recognize information about the car's vicinities and to transfer the data to its artificial intelligence. The car is also embedded with electronic and communications devices to receive data on brake, accelerator and steering angles.
먼저 기본적으로는 GPS 경로를 따라가도록 설계가 되어 있습니다. 앞에 물체가 나타났을 경우에 이런 센서와 카메라들을 갖고 인식을 하게 됩니다. 그래서 그런 것들이 어떤 신호등이라든가 표지판이라든가 하는 정보들을 준다면은 그것을 또 알려주게 되고, 장애물이 있어서 충돌이 발생할 수 있는 가능성이 있다면은 그런 것들을 또 안에 제어 쪽에 알려주게 됩니다. 그러면 그것을 갖고 새로운 경로를 만들어서 이제 그것을 따라 주행을 하게 되는 그런 방식으로 움직이게 되고요.
Indeed, self-driving vehicle technology has already been successfully developed years ago, but it isn't in the stage to completely control various circumstances which might actually occur on the roads. So the autonomous driving competition gives participants missions similar to what could actually happen on the roads, such as detecting traffic signals, recognizing obstacles, and exploring a maze. The team which completes the missions more thoroughly wins the competition. Last year, the Hanyang University team won the autonomous driving competition organized by Hyundai Kia Motors. They fulfilled its missions almost perfectly with their self-developed control system and wowed everyone.
분산형 제어 시스템이라 그래서 10개 이상의 컴퓨터 제어 장치가 동시에 자기 임무를 수행하면서 1초에 100번 정도의 정보 공유를 하면서 컴퓨팅을 하게 됩니다. 그래서 이러한 분산형 제어 시스템의 구조를 가지고 있는 것은 저희가 알기로 아직도 우리나라 세계에서는 저희가 최초인 것으로 파악이 됐습니다. 그래서 이러한 분산형 제어 시스템을 하기 위해서는 전기, 전자뿐만 아니라 차량 동력 각진모를 확실히 알아야 되고요. 또한 정보를 1초에 100번씩 주고받기 위해서는 네트워크 설계 능력도 아주 중요한 핵심 기술 중에 하나라고 말씀드릴 수 있습니다.
It may not be a completely autonomous driving, but nearly autonomous driving technologies have already been applied to mass-produced vehicles in the US. For the first time in South Korea, Hyundai Motors' new Yantai model applied advanced parking wheel steering assistance system, which added a perpendicular parking function. Kia Motors' K9 model can be remotely started by downloading an application via the smartphone. It can also control locking or unlocking of the doors and adjust the temperature before getting in the car. Unmanned vehicle technology is largely divided into 4 stages. It starts from a driving assistance stage to a partially autonomous driving stage, a high level of autonomous driving stage, to a completely autonomous driving stage. This is the goal of developing self-driving cars.
국내 자동차, 자율주행 자동차의 수준은 지금 현재 2번째 정도 단계에 있다고 보시면 됩니다. 차선 인식을 통해서 차선을 유지한다거나 아니면 앞차를 따라간다거나 아니면 자동 파킹을 한다거나 뭐 이런 정도 수준은 현재 국내에서 자체적으로 생산을 할 수 있는 기술 수준입니다.
Therefore, unmanned vehicle technology is not simply a car driving technology. It is the technology which fuses various sensors and information, such as cameras that can replace human eyes, laser scanners that make 3-dimensional maps using light waves, and GPS that tracks current locations. This combined technology makes the driverless car move.
가장 중요한 기술은 사실은 센서 기술입니다. 우리가 좋은 센서가 있어야 무인 자동차 및 좋은 자동차를 만들 수 있는 것이고요. 그 다음 단계로 현재 시점에서 가장 중요한 기술은 센서로부터 들어오는 이 수많은 실시간 정보들을 최대한 빠르게 처리를 해서 제어 쪽으로 연결시킬 수 있는 소위 소프트웨어 및 알고리즘 기술입니다. 이 소프트웨어 기술은 이 자동차뿐만 아니라 많은 분야에서도 굉장히 중요한 기술이긴 하지만 특히 인간의 생명을 담보로 하고 있는 무인 자동차에서는 이 앞으로 더욱더 비중이 커질 수 있는 대단히 중요한 기술이고요.
A number of patent applications for unmanned self-driving cars stood at less than 10 per year until 2007, but it rose to 32 in 2012, showing that development of unmanned vehicles is actively underway in South Korea recently. Why are the world's major mass-producing car makers, leading technology firms and university laboratories competing to develop self-driving cars? If self-driving cars become a reality and all vehicles on the road are automatically controlled, experts say traffic accidents and rush hours could disappear.
자동차로 인해서 돌아가시는 분들이 1년에 약 130만 명 됩니다. 그런데 130만 명 중 90%가 운전자 부주의 때문에 돌아가시기 때문에 자동차를 하고 있는 저희 기술 인력들은 궁극적으로 자동차에 의해서 돌아가시는 분이 없게 만들고 싶은 것이 저희들의 꿈입니다. 이러한 것이 이러한 자동차를 개발하는 데 아주 중요한 동기라고 볼 수 있죠. 고속도로라든가 이런 곳에서 자율주행이 가능한 상황은 약 2017년이면 대부분의 자동차들이 기능을 가질 수 있을 것 같고요. 완전 자율주행이 되기 위해서는 저희들 생각에 약 2025년 이후가 되면 우리들이 원하는 꿈의 자율주행 자동차를 만나실 수 있을 것 같습니다.
Self-driving cars will enable us to go to our destinations while comfortably reading newspapers. Can they really replace future cars?
South Korea levies a volume-based garbage disposal fee in order to encourage the reduction of wastage among households. There's one problem with this. You see, food wastage always includes a considerable quantity of moisture which expands its volume. And this has led a South Korean company to come up with a rather clever product. It's a device which dries out food waste, thereby compressing its volume and saving you money. Let's meet this week's hidden champion.
Food is an essential part of life. An increasing amount of households are responsible for creating huge amounts of food waste. Around 15,000 tons of food waste is created every day, which has resulted in annual financial losses that amount to over $18 billion. The Korean government has come forward with an aggressive measure to curb the amount of food being wasted by implementing the volume rate food waste disposal system in every region and city. With the new government measure, the food waste disposal industry is also expected to grow. Disposing food waste is an unpleasant ordeal that comes after every meal. Under the new government measure, food waste can only be thrown out by using the designated plastic bag that comes in different volumes. This housewife says all her troubles ended after buying a food waste decomposer.
기계를 사용하고 나서는 자주 버려야 되는 번거로움도 없어지고 또 음식물 양도 많이 줄어들어서 모았다 버리기에도 불편한 점이 없고 편리합니다.
The food waste decomposer market is expected to reach $74 million this year, to expand into a supersized market by 2016, estimated at more than $839 million. Smart Kara is the product to buy among the food waste decomposers out in the market. The company that has made the sensational product is Magic Kara. Smart Kara Food Waste Decomposer has upgraded and perfected the aspects of existing decomposers, starting from containing odors, shortening process time, and improving functions of food decomposition. This has attracted a lot of customer attention.
음식물 쓰레기를 처리하고 배출하고 하는 거에 가장 복잡한 나라가 저희 나라입니다. 음식물 쓰레기를 처리하는 데 있어서의 그런 불편함과 고충들 이런 것들을 해결할 수 있는 솔루션이 필요하다. 그게 이제 저희의 생각이었고 그걸 이제 제품으로 상품화를 한 거거든요.
It dries wet food waste completely to a powder state, reducing food waste volume by 1/10 of its original state. It's easy to use without the mess of dealing with dripping wet food waste. The multi-combination activated carbon reduces smell emitted from food waste by its type, proving to be an excellent material for eliminating odor.
음식물은 종류별 부패 정도에 따라 발생하는 냄새가 서로 다릅니다. 여러 종류의 냄새를 한꺼번에 잡기는 어려운데 저희는 3중 필터 기술을 개발하였습니다.
The drying container is detachable, making it easier to clean, which helps to maintain a good sanitary level for the food waste decomposer. The food waste decomposer is designed and minimal and compact, from which blends well into any household interior. Time and electricity bills are important factors for those planning to use the food waste decomposer. It takes Smart Kara an average of 3 to 4 hours to process food waste, and if the machine operates 12 times a month, it costs a little over $2 in an electricity bill.
우리나라 음식물 쓰레기의 그 성상 자체가 이제 발효 음식이 많고, 그 다음에 이제 국물 문화의 이제 음식물, 섬유질, 뭐 끓이고 또 염분이 좀 많고 이런 특성 때문에 상당히 부패했을 때 악취가 심합니다. 그리고 물기도 많이 생기고 이거를 처리하기 위한 기술이 당연히 한국이 제일 으뜸일 수밖에 없는 거죠.
Smart Kara is becoming a popular item at stores as more users rave about the machine's product quality. With the implementation of the volume rate food waste disposable system, more people are looking for ways to reduce food waste.
음식물 종량제를 시행하고 나서부터 고객님들끼리 이제 음식물 쓰레기 버리는 거에 대해서 되게 민감하세요. 그것 때문에 아무래도 쓰레기를 줄이는 방법으로 많이 가기 때문에 그래서 음식물 처리기를 많이 찾으시고 있는 추세예요.
음식물 쓰레기가 보면은 그냥 마른 부분이 아니잖아요. 축축한 부분이 있다 보니까 물이 항상 이렇게 흐르고 집안에 냄새도 나고 그래서 또 이게 쓰레기를 줄여야 하는 그런 상황인데, 그래서 이렇게 이런 기계가 있다 그래서 뭐 구경도 나와봤고 마음에 드는 제품이 있다면 구입하려고 지금 생각 중에 있습니다.
The popularity of Smart Kara has swept the domestic market and made its way into the global market in recent years. Demand is high in North America, Europe, and Malaysia. Korea's technological achievement is providing convenience and creating economic benefits at households worldwide.
연간 한 7천억 정도를 소요한다고 그랬는데 한 23단계 정도를 거쳐서 음식물 쓰레기가 자원화하고 있어요. 현재는. 이 감량기를 쓰게 되면 한 5단계 정도로 줄일 수가 있어요. 거기에 들어가는 인건비, 차량 운영비, 처리 단계 공정들 이런 것들을 줄일 수 있기 때문에 한 7천억이 거의 뭐 대폭 축소되는 거라고 볼 수 있겠죠. 그래서 경제적인 이익은 뭐 계속적으로 낭비해서 없어지는 것보다는 계속적으로 쌓여갈 수 있다는 효과가 볼 수 있습니다.
Korea's leading food waste decomposer has succeeded in alleviating household burden by saving expenses while helping to prevent environmental pollution. The small equipment that takes up only a small area in the kitchen has become the perfect item filled with the right technology, having a huge impact in Korea and around the world.
Throughout its history, socialist North Korea has demonized the United States, both as a symbol of capitalism and, according to its propaganda, of imperialist aggression. Yet now, there may be attitudinal change underway. Currently, North Korea is inviting people from across the Anglosphere to come into North Korea and teach English to North Koreans, focusing on conversational skill. Why is Pyongyang prioritizing the language of its #1 enemy? In our North Korean segment, we find out.
For more than 10 years, one lady always has accompanied the North Korean delegates to the six-party talks. She was everywhere to translate because it was so rare to find a fluent English speaker in the reclusive country. But that may change soon in the secretive socialist country due to a boom in English education, which has also led the so-called imperialist language to replace Russian as North Korea's first foreign language.
They can have more opportunities to travel to abroad, a better chance to have better job and better income. So they are very much, in need to have more, language learning and especially English mastering.
North Korean experts say more and more people are willing to learn English as the North Korean regime tries to improve English ability of its people. The government has even invited native English-speaking tutors to the country in an effort to keep pace with international trends, which are globalization and informatization. Professor Stuart Lone can't forget the last group chat he had with his pupils in Pyongyang, North Korea in May 2012. The teenage boys were so excited and focused on debating in English that the conversation would have likely continued.
I was sitting with a group of 5 boys, aged 14, and we talked in English non-stop for 2 hours. And the conversation was interesting. It was complex. It was on a wide variety of topics. And not for 1 second did the conversation stumble. Not for 1 second was I bored. It was an interesting, intelligent conversation in English for 2 hours with teenage boys.
He had taught students English for 2 to 3 weeks every 6 months between 2010 and 2012.
Yes, very eager. Foreign language teachers working in Pyongyang is evidence of that desire. What they want to do is understand and communicate and engage with the outside world, and English is necessary for that.
Reflecting Professor Loan's testimony of growing interest in improving English skills, primary schools in North Korea started to provide compulsory English classes for students from 3rd grade in 2008, according to Understanding North Korea 2013, published by the government-run Institute for Unification Education.
3학년까지는 주로 회화였고 4학년부터 리딩, 문법, 회화 섞어서 이제 배웠던 걸로 기억하고 있습니다. 김일성, 김정일 뭐 혁명 활동이라든지 역사라든지 이런 것도 중요시 여긴 다음에 그건 1순위고 2순위로는 뭐 수학이라든지 영어라든지 매우 중요하게 여기고 있죠.
North Korean regime started to emphasize the importance of English as a foreign language more and more in the 2000s. After realizing that the key asset to building a global competitive nation is to develop science and technology.
김정일이 그러니까 단번 도약을 하겠다고 했어요. 북한 사회의 발전 수준이 낮은 걸 아니까 이걸 메이크업하기 위해서 한 번에 확 뛰겠다라는 꿈을 가지고 있어요. 어떻게 할 겁니까? 영어로 된 자료를 보고 국제사회하고 소통을 하지 않으면 안 된다는 건 알아요.
Science technology equals national strengths. English is essential in order to understand the latest developments in science and technology. Therefore, English is an aspect of national strength.
Growing importance of trade and market activities in the reclusive socialist country has encouraged even the general public in North Korea to learn English aggressively.
최근에는 이제 북한이 장사로 먹고 사는 사회가 되어 버렸거든요. 그 장사라는 것이 그 중국어를 하거나 영어가 되지 않으면 무역을 하는 것도 힘든 수준이 됐어요. 주민들이 이렇게 살면서 보니까 영어 하는 사람은 먹고 살거든요.
But such growing access to English may result in something that the repressive North Korean regime doesn't want. A change in its people's thinking that could lead to the country opening to the outside world.
When I was at the institute, those Russian learners, the way they behave and they talk, they looked like Russians. And for us, we looked like maybe English people. Yeah, so, it is absolutely, affecting our way of thinking and our way of, behavior. We could have more access to the outside literature and culture, and more understanding of the outside world and more information.
양날의 칼이죠. 그러니까 걱정이 안 되는 건 아니에요. 어쩔 수 없어서 하는데 이거가 너무 퍼질까 봐 혹은 이걸 통해서 나쁜 사상이 들어올까 봐 그러니까 자본주의 황색바람이 들어올까 봐.
Recalling what he saw and heard in Pyongyang, Professor Long believes that such strong demand to learn English could be the evidence of the so-called Hermit Kingdom's desire to communicate with the global community.
Conversation suggests communication, not simply mining the internet for information or mining books for information. So I think English language is also regarded as a national asset in North Korea because it enhances the ability of North Koreans to communicate in a dialogue with people around the world.
Learning a language requires learning the culture of that country. It would be interesting to watch whether increasing access to English could accelerate not only North Korea's technological development, but also opening the country to the outside world, which it must inevitably do for its own good.
And that is all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do join us again next week. We'll be looking at President Park Geun-hye's Pan-Asian trade diplomacy. We'll also be meeting more South Korean companies heading into overseas markets with their environmental technologies. So do stay with us. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.